Hey y'all, hey. Alright, so we're gonna make this a good one tonight. So today I was thinking about a couple of things, kind of thinking about some of the videos that I've already done, and I've also thought about some new subjects that we would put out there. So for anybody that's new to looking at my channel is for those who are, I would say, I said 50 initially, but I said I had to drop that down to 40 because I think there's some fairly mature 40-year-olds that are out there. Should be. Anyway, we would hope that they are. But I was thinking about something with the ladies and just going back and kind of just juggling in my mind what should I chat about. But anybody that's here for my channel, the channel is for those that are 50 and over, and I've really been juggling back and forth with like whether it's for people that are in marriage right now, those that are going through marital problems. I think that some of the things that the content that I may give could be beneficial to both, but I do think that more so it is most beneficial for those that are walking in a singleness right now, and they're trying to figure out like what to do with that from a Christian perspective. And I was thinking about the Proverbs 31 woman. And just thinking about some of the things that I talked about most recently, especially with like people dating for money, that being their main purpose for developing a relationship. And then just off the top of my head today, as I was driving, I was just listening to a couple of friends and some of the things that they had concern with. And so today I want to talk about, ladies, listen more and talk less. Listen more and talk less. Sometimes in relationships, we overtalk or we talk a little bit too much. And this is not a Debbie Downer message. Like, one thing that you'll learn about me and my page is that it is for upbuilding and it is for uplifting those. But sometimes we have to also bring in a rod of correction. And I'm gonna tell you what made me kind of get to this. I'm in school, as I mentioned to some of you guys. I'm working on another degree, and in the process, like, sometimes my weekends are just really long, and it takes a lot of discipline. It takes discipline to get up and still do the things that I need to do. In days like today, where I had no intentions on being out all day, but literally I have been gone from home for almost 12 hours. And now that I'm back home, I was able to do some of the homework while I was out, but I still have some that I need to do. But in the process, I was just thinking about, the dating process and what things that I've come across. Some of the men that I've been introduced to or talked to and things of that sort. And one of the main things that I thought about is I learned to listen. Because if you listen, oftentimes we're not listening to what men are saying, and we begin to read and put our own spin on whatever it is that goes on with the conversation. And so the reason that I said you want to listen more and talk less is because a lot of times you can find out your answers of what you're looking for in the early parts of dating. You can find out what exactly it is that you need to know about that person that's going to tell you whether they are or are not a good fit for you. And this particular situation I want to share with you, and I want to share it from a perspective, like, when I share things, I want you guys to know it's not from a tattletale type situation. It is more or less, this is a lesson that I learned, and I want to make sure that I share it with someone else. And sometimes when we see videos like this and we see content creators that are out here, what we do learn is sometimes what they're saying is what we already know. We just needed to hear it from a different perspective in order to be able to enforce it or allow it to be resonated in our life on a regular basis. And so, ladies, when I say listen more and talk less, oftentimes we're talking so much that we miss the key points that might show us the red flags, or we miss the key points that might tell us that it's a green flag to keep going. And there was a situation where I talked earlier on one of my other videos where I spoke about There was a young man that I was talking with, and he called the lady out of her name. And when he did, and I got to try to remember which video that was on, but anyway, when he did, I brought it to his attention. I said something about it, and at that time, he basically said that, well, if you don't want to hear what I got to say, I don't have to talk to you either. And I said to myself, good, like it didn't make me no difference. So, what I also wanted to say in reference to that same situation, there were certain things, so I want to give context to that particular situation. When I first met that person, I did not meet him. I met him playing pool, because anybody that watches my channel, that that's a part of what I do. So I meet guys all the time. It's not a thing. I don't go into those places to meet men, but I meet them because they come to play pool. And so this particular person, he was there on the pool table one night that I went to a certain location, and he was like, okay, oh, so you can shoot. Well, what happened is the table where I normally play, it was just full. It was like 4 or 5 people there, and I was like, dog, I don't want to get in line for that. So they were playing on the other table, and I said, hey, y'all mind if I get in on a game? That's typically how you get in. You just ask, can I get in on the game? Typically, you can't hold a table in a public place unless you're at an actual billiard location and you paid for that table for a certain amount of time. You normally just let the person have next up. So they did. They let me play. And I can't remember. I want to say they beat me that night. But it was a pretty close game. I might have had 1 or 2 balls on the table, blah, blah, blah. So a couple of days later, sometimes I go and I shoot, and I'm by myself. And so I'm shooting and I'm by myself. And when I do that, I'm practicing. Like, I'm usually working on my skill set, trying to see whether or not I can shoot from a different angle. Like, I'm testing myself at a different level when I'm shooting by myself, because I'm trying to take shots that I would have to try to take if I was shooting somebody that was competitive. And so the guy came in, he said, hey, you shooting by yourself tonight? And I was like, yeah, I'm shooting by myself. And so he said, you mind if I get in? And I said, well, sure. Yeah, so he said, give me a minute. I'm going to get me something to drink. I'm coming back over to the table, right? He asked me, you want something to drink? I said, no, thank you. So we started shooting. We were laughing, joking, joking around, whatever. And so when we continued to shoot, he said, you sure you don't want nothing to drink? And I said, no, thank you. I'm good. I don't need anything to drink. And then he went on and we shot the game or whatever. And so the young man, we ended up talking. He said, well, you mind if I get your number? And I said, well, really, I don't give out my number like that in here, because the thing is, you don't want to start having relationships in places where you enjoy that space. And for me, if you have went back and looked at my videos, shooting pool is a relaxation for me. It is a release for me. It is the place that I go when I've had a stressful day. And so I do not necessarily enjoy meeting people in that space, because if I go into that space, I don't then want to have a negative residue if that relationship does not work out. That's a mature thing to do. It's not easy, but it's a mature thing to do when you are a single woman who would like to date. But long story short, this person actually, they rode a bike. And so, I was like, hey, that's your bike? So we got to talking. I said, you got an extra helmet? Now, remember, I'm single. I don't have anybody in my life. I'm not seeing anybody on a regular basis. There's no exclusive relationship with me. So I'm open to go out with whoever I want to. And so I'm going out, and we were walking out, and he said, yeah, I got a helmet. He said, I got a brand new helmet. I said, oh, that means ain't nobody ever rode on the back of here. You make it preparation. So he was going into this little thing. Oh, yeah, I'm looking for a wife, this, that, and the other. Listen, ladies, I'm looking for a wife, da-da-da-da-da. Okay. I said, well, I'm not really interested in the relationship part, but I might be interested in riding the bike with you sometimes. If you're not seeing nobody. No, I ain't in no relationship. I'm looking for a wife, this, that, and the other. We exchanged numbers. And so we talked on the phone for a minute, and then we decided to go for a ride. And so I told him I would meet him at a location, and I did. I met him there, and and I'm excited because what many of you don't know is that I grew up on the back of a bike. My brother has always rode from the time I was a little girl. So maybe from the time I was about 2 all the way up until in my 20s, I was on the back of a motorcycle because he always drove one. And then my dad had one later on in life. So I'm saying that to say that riding the bike wasn't no thing for me. Like, it didn't have to be a relationship. I just want to ride because that's what I do. And so I said, okay, well, let's meet up. We go riding. We have a good time. I said, hey, we're going to another location because I wanted to take him back to my spot to shoot. And so I said, we're going to another location. I'll show you some things around the city because he said he wasn't from here. And, the more we talked and everything, he kept saying, well, I'm looking for a wife, like, you riding on the back of the bike. Like, what's in it for me? And I said, ain't nothing in it for you. Like I told you where we were. I told you from the jump that this wasn't finna never be no, like, relationship. This is strictly me riding the bike. He said, well, what if I meet somebody, we out and I see somebody that I want to holler at? I said, I'll go over to her and tell her, hey, sis, we not together. He really want to holler at you. And so, I'm laughing at myself because I was like, I'll go make the connection, and I'll tell her, look, now you can come and holler at him, but he got to take me back to my car, and then he can come back and pick you up. And I told him that. And so I'm saying that to say that I was listening to everything that he was saying, and I want to give you guys a little bit more. It's a lot more to it, and I'm holding back some because I don't ever want to put it out there where like I'm doing something negative to somebody, but I want to make sure that you understand. And the more I talked to this person, he was telling me about some things that he did. Initially, it sounded like he was just here in the city alone, and the more that I talked to him, in the end, I listened to what he was saying, and slowly but surely I found out that he was here in the city with someone. And what that means is, one of the things I said to him is like, hey, I'm single. Like, it's no dude that's going to roll up on you and nothing ever happen. I'm on the back of this bike with you, and if I don't know who that person is, but they know who you are, and they know your bike, like, what does that look like? And what kind of danger or situation that puts me in, because we don't know what people will do nowadays. Like, one time before, people might ask you whether or not there's a relationship there, but I know that I was just on the back of the bike just to go for the ride. And what I'm saying to you is that as a woman, you need to make sure that you are in tune with yourself enough to listen to what men are saying. Eventually they will tell you what it is that they're looking for. He had alluded to the fact that he wanted certain things, and I didn't allude to anything. I just shut that right down. And I explained to him that, listen, I told you that all I want to do is ride this bike. You could shoot pool, you could teach me a few things on the table, and you could let me ride this Harley. And so I had kind of mapped out that that was gonna be my summer. Like, we coming out of February, March, I'm like, hey, I'm going to go and get me a couple of pair of pants. I ordered me a couple of pair of pants to ride because all I had was jeans. And, sometimes when you're on the bike, you just need a little more flexibility. So I had ordered a couple of good little pair of leather jeans to put on. And the thing is, I was so frustrated with him. I said, hey, like, we talking, you good people. I like your vibe and everything. But I thought I was very honest with you up front. Like, the more you talk to me about this situation that you're in, this sounds like y'all in a relationship. Even if it's an old relationship, it's not been juvenated lately, this is a relationship. If you here in the city, you came with this person, you came with this person. I can't make this stuff up, y'all. And so, the long and the short is, when we ended up stopped talking that day, that he said that he didn't really want to hear what I had to say about it. I had already pretty much made a resolve that really wasn't gonna go nowhere, no way. Now, he also did some other work, and I was gonna have that part done because I needed his skill set for some work at my home. But I'm saying to you ladies that if I did all the talking and I did not listen to what he was saying, I would have missed the mark in the fact that this man actually was involved in a relationship with a woman. I'm not saying that people are not connected, if you will. And when I say connected, in a relationship where they are relating with each other. But what I am saying is that be truthful, and then listen to what men are saying. Don't be so anxious to just jump into something just because you're by yourself. Become comfortable with being by yourself. I am very comfortable in my own skin. Would I like to have somebody to go out with sometimes? Yes, I would. Would I love to go and sit down at dinner with someone? Yes, I would. Would I love to have somebody take me to the movies sometimes? Yes, I would. But I am in tune with myself enough that I am not desperate for someone that just tells me that he wants to have a wife. And I'm saying that because that particular guy, he led with that. And sometimes when we are single, sometimes when we've been by ourselves enough, and I'm kind of doing my ear like this because sometimes they're looking for us to be able to just tickle our ears. But they're not looking, and they really only looking to tickle something else. But in the end, if you're not listening, you're not able to discern whether or not that is going to be a good fit for you. First of all, I knew with some of the things that he shared with me, how he carried himself, his language just in conversation, it just wasn't going to work for me. Now, could we hang out together? Yes, we could. Could we have a good time and I go to the pool hall, we shoot pool, we ride bike, and yes, we could. But him in my home every day, him in my everyday space, my personal space, my inner core, that just wasn't going to work for me. And when you also think about people that are in our age group, again, we are all pretty much set in our own ways. Like whatever we are right now, that's pretty much what you're going to get when it comes down to our personality traits, our ways of doing things, our lifestyles, our expectations. We are going to pretty much operate in that vein. We might adjust for somebody. Like if we meet that person, I could see some adjustments. And I would be honest, I think I shared on a previous video, it has to be my person in order for me to make those adjustments. Like he got to be somebody that really, really woos me in a way that he is the one that I know is going to be the one in order for me to make those adjustments. And I would feel the same way about him. In other words, if it's not truly a special relationship, don't try to make it that, because that would have been a disaster in multiple ways. It would have been a disaster because he was going to keep pushing to try to get me to do something, and basically, every man trying to get to the same thing. They trying to get to the prize. They want to see where the cookie jar is, and if you come right on in and hand it to him, he's gonna take it. Like, I don't know of a kid that if you came in and you opened up the candy jar and you just handed it to them, that they wouldn't take the cookies out the candy jar or the candy out the candy jar. Either way, I don't know of not one. So I'm not saying that in a negative way. I'm saying it in a way that maybe this video is just to make you look a little closer at yourself. Make sure that you're listening. You might be in a relationship right now that you kind of have an uneasy feeling about. You know it's not quite right, and it doesn't really feel good to you. You can't quite put your finger on it, but because you don't have nobody else to talk to in the evenings, you just talk to this person, or because you don't have anybody that has shown interest in you, you take interest in this person. I would say just be very cautious of that. Make sure that you listen more and say less, because eventually all of it will come to the top. And I'll say the same thing for the guys. This video was mainly for the ladies tonight, but I'll even say the same thing for the men. Like, don't allow yourself to be moved by just a woman's body or her beauty. Allow yourself to be moved by what her countenance is when she's in your presence. How does she treat people when you take her out to dinner? Is she nice to the waitress? Is she kind to the person who is going to seat you all? Like, how does she respond when other people come into the room or in the presence of where y'all are if you're in a waiting room? You want to really look at that. Is she cocky with her friends? You know, something that I do when I'm out with people, and I did it today. My girlfriend and I, we went to eat breakfast. I like to people watch. And I like to watch the room. I like to watch the atmosphere. Again, my degree is in human services. So I like to service humans. I'm very in tune with people. I'm paying attention. And so I like to watch the room. And one of the things I told my girlfriend where we went to eat today, I said, one of the things I noticed is a lot of couples come here. We were just eating breakfast. at one of the local pubs in one of the local cities. And I told her, I said, this is a place where couples come. That was one thing that I noticed, because there were a lot of couples that came. You could tell they got up that morning and they said, let's get some breakfast, and they came. And I said, many of them, they were doing things like holding hands. And they were, you could tell it was a good space for them. Very soft, very simple life, basically, the way that they were going about it. And then there was one couple specifically, and they did something, and she sat down and he sat down. They sat on the same row. And I told my girlfriend, I said, I've been watching them, because where they were sitting in the row where I could see them. My girlfriend was sitting with her back to them. And I said, I've kind of watched just how she leaned over to the guy, from time to time, and, they would talk and whatever. And she had on a ring and he had on one, so I'm assuming that they were married. And I told her, I said, that is how I'm going to respond to my bae when he comes. And she said, what? And she said, what are you doing? And I said, I'm watching everybody. I see everything. I see the couples that come in and the ladies are on their phone. Like, ladies, especially those of you that have a man, what I'm going to say to you is, when you're with him, you need to be with him. Put your phone down. Tell your girlfriends you'll talk to them later. When he comes in the house, say, girl, I got to go. My girlfriends, they know that when I am on the phone with them and their husbands come in the house, I'm like, girl, I'm finna go. I'll talk to you later. And I'm putting in and modeling a practice to them that I'm going to be expecting for them to understand when that time comes for me. But I want to just go back to, maybe I'll do a whole video on that, talking about, the time that you put in, quality time with a person, and being engaged in the moment with them. But I just wanted to come on and just say, listen more and talk less. Now what I need for you to do is what? I need for you to click like, I need for you to share this with a friend, and I need for you to subscribe. I appreciate you guys for always giving me the feedback, and I'm looking forward to my channel growing as we continue to grow together. All right, have a good night.